Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the reigning, defending, undefeated podcast, the show where we're hitting you with the elbows of knowledge. And as always, I'm here with my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
Absolutely nothing. This week, I've got to admit, I'm excited for this one. Ankalaev taking on Alex Pereira, UFC 313. This is one of the cards that I've been looking forward to. Arguably, I would say this is probably the best card that we've had this year. Would you have to agree so far, Carlos?
Best card we've had there.
Yeah, you think so far this year this
It,
is probably the
it's a
best
it's a
card?
it's a good it's a good card. You know, I wouldn't say it's the best just because I can watch fights locally. I love watching the regional guys, and I I, I can watch any fight on the UFC. I didn't think there was like so many big names on this card
Hmm.
for it to be a big card, but going to be competitive. A lot of the fights on here.
Hmm. Yeah, we've got a purist in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos just loves fist fights, so it doesn't matter to him, local or UFC. He's all about it. But I'm excited for this one. I mean, like you got Poatan, who's arguably one of the hottest UFC fighters right now, taking on probably his toughest test in Ankalaev. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And Justin Gaethje, which is in the co-main event, which is always a banger. He's never in a boring fight. Rafael Fiziev, who again is another guy who's always down for a banger. You're not going to see a lot of takedown shot out of him. So again, pretty stacked top to bottom in my opinion, as far as names and as far as fights go. So I'm pretty excited. But before we do get into that, we've got a couple of topics that we want to talk about here on the Ground and Pound podcast, and kind of just thinking a little bit more about last week and the recap of the UFC fight night. Asu taking on Manel Karp. And the first topic that we want to kind of discuss a little bit is people's thoughts on the Apex. This topic and this kind of recap, I wanted to talk a little bit about purely because the Apex has been around for a while now, and at the first time when it happened with COVID, and they had the arena, the small arena that they do the contender series on, it was seemed pretty cool, right? There wasn't a big crowd. You could hear all of the shots that people were landing, and that it had that really cool feel of where you felt like you were kind of there and immersed within the fights. And I was a big fan of it once, when COVID happened and they had the lockdowns and they were still doing the fights in the Apex. I really enjoyed it. Um, but I'm getting to that point now where I'm starting to wonder, do we still like the Apex, or is it just lazy on the part of the UFC? Is it something that we feel like, they've taken the opportunity to keep it in the Apex and not have fights on the road at big shows all the time with a live crowd? They've taken it as the opportunity to kind of sell it as like a VIP package for people who are willing to spend a lot more on a seat, in the Apex. Do we like that? Leave your comments in the comments section about whether you like the Apex. And I'm going to ask Carlos, like, do you like the Apex still, Carlos, or are you a big fan of it, or is it something that you'd like to see them maybe scrap and just do with contender series? Like, what are your thoughts on the Apex?
I love the Apex, man. I just wish that the crowd that's there was gone because I love hearing the hits.
Mm,
I love hearing them breathe heavy because they're getting shots to the body. I like when the corners yelling the advice and you can hear it. It just reminds me of sparring. You can hear the smacking of the punches, the kicks. You can, you know what I mean, the takedowns, the slams, even better.
mm,
I enjoy that very much. So that's unfortunately, they're probably. I think I heard something about they wanted to make it a venue a little bit bigger like this,
yeah.
but with more seating. And I'm like, yeah, because then the UFC will own it. They don't have to pay out to another venue. It's theirs. It'll pay itself off in however many years. It'll be more lucrative. I get that, but I just kind of miss that because it reminds me of the days of sparring and just you can hear people like talking shit about like the old coaches talking about the other corners coaches and
Mm.
saying that kid ain't shit. I miss that, and that's what I got from the Apex.
Yeah, I will say that we've had some pretty good moments. I mean, like for example, some pretty good Kevin Holland moments where you can hear him talking because he's talking to his opponent, and then he's hearing stuff like the commentary, like DC is saying, and he comes out with some classic one-liners. The one I remember is where he's like, he says something like he's so hard or something. DC's like, yeah, he's so hard, and then and then Kevin Holland's like, it's so hard, DC, he's so hard, like and just the back and forth that you hear amongst the fighters and the coaches. Like, I agree with you. That's definitely something I do like, and I definitely have enjoyed since COVID and the lockdown times. But my other flip side to it is I also wish that the crowds were there purely because I think it does affect the fighters. I think there's definitely a lot more fights that are much more back and forth and competitive. I think the fighters go for it a little bit more because of the adrenaline that they feed off from the crowd. Whereas with the UFC Apex, I kind of feel like sometimes it kind of doesn't go that way. I don't think the crowd really gets behind them in the same sense, because obviously it's just not that big of an arena and not that many people are there. So it's something to think about. I mean, like I said, if for you guys watching, you guys listening, let us know in the comment section what you think about it. But it's definitely a business move to me. I feel like it's more of a business move because, although you've got to sell out tickets for an arena, maybe smaller arenas that aren't pay-per-view events, and you've got some of these fighters who aren't necessarily good big names. It's something that I think the UFC's kind of done as we can kind of save and cut back on some of the budget here and use our own facility and still get something out of it and make money off of it. I know some celebrities have also bought out the UFC Apex. I think Mark Zuckerberg bought out the UFC Apex for friends and family at one point for one of the events. So it's definitely something that I think people need to start talking about, because I do definitely like the no crowd, but I do kind of miss the fans sometimes. Like, I feel it doesn't have that same atmosphere, but maybe I'm a hater. Who knows?
I don't miss the fans one bit.
And the fans got a treat last week, though, for this one with Ribovic and Nasrat Haqparast. Definitely fight of the night. My question to Carlos is, do you think the right guy won? Do you think it was a robbery? Do you agree with the decision last week between these two?
I do. I think it was the right decision. Haqparast did a good job, I'd say, looking looking the part. Like, he landed the cleaner shots in the rounds. Like, even the rounds where Ribovic was staying busy, a lot of it was going off of Haqparast's arms, his shoulders, and that's mainly because Ribovic was headhunting and he wasn't bringing his hands back on defense. He has no head movement. He doesn't move his feet. So Haqparast could, or anybody could, throw with their eyes closed and just swing, and you know that Ribovic's head's going to be right there, and it's going to look better to the judges.
Hmm.
But somebody in Ribovic's corner has got to tell him, like, hey, you know what? You got to mix this. It's mixed martial arts. You got to throw some leg kicks. You got to go to the body, come up top, change levels in your striking. Not to mention change levels in the fight. Like, even if you're not gonna go all in for a takedown, attempt the takedown.
Hmm.
Knowing that you're not gonna do that, go for the clinch. Fight on the inside. Do something different. He's too good of a fighter to be sitting there taking the punishment that he's taking. At the end of the fight, Ribovic looked like a guy that lost. You know what I mean? Like, whether he had won the decision or not. And Haqparast just looked like a guy that just beat the shit out of him.
Hmm.
I think he had blood coming out of his ear at one point. So, yeah, I think the decision was right.
Yeah, I had a hard time with it. I definitely thought it was a pretty close decision. And one thing I do agree with you on is that Ribovic needed to go to the body. Like, you could visibly see, anybody that's watched MMA, that Nasrat was holding a high guard when every single time Ribovic would go to the head, he's just got to slip and end his combination with a big body shot. And the commentary team kept on talking about how Nasrat kept on going to the body with the kicks. And that, I think, was causing Ribovic problems too, just purely because he didn't know whether it was going to the body or the head. But Ribovic, Nasrat knew exactly what Ribovic was going to do. He was just going to keep headhunting. So I'm with Carlos. I mean, I don't necessarily think that he needed to mix in takedowns. That's not necessarily Ribovic's game. We've not seen that much out of him. Obviously, it's something that he could have mixed in. I do agree, but just go to the body. It was there. And the thing that kind of irks me a little bit was a guy that's that good, like you said, 14-1, coming off a big performance at UFC Noche against Daniel Zellhuber, momentum going into the division. I feel like he should have steamrolled Nasrat. I felt like he really kind of let himself down, and I can't believe that his corner wasn't telling him, go to the body, go to the body. And I think I actually said to you, Carlos, on the breakdown when we did this fight that I honestly would like to see Ribovic change gyms and start going to other gyms because I know he trains just solely in Argentina. I don't see him train with any high level guys. And I just wonder if that lack of experience training with better guys was the reason that he therefore lost that fight, just because he's not getting those different looks where someone, in sparring is doing what Nasrat's doing, recognizing that he's only going to the head. So, in sparring, he's getting these guys that he can just, he's head and shoulders better than. And I just wonder if maybe he would have picked up on that with a better coach or with better training partners. But I like you said, I feel like Ribovic is too good of a fighter for him to not be picking up on things like that. So I was a little disappointed, and obviously we both picked Ribovic, so it wasn't good on our part for the pick. But one thing I did want to point out, which is why I was just checking my phone real quick while you were talking there, is Ribovic threw a total of 436 strikes. Over a course of 3 rounds, landed 147 significant strikes. Nasrat landed 135 significant strikes, and he threw 273 strikes. So he almost doubled him up there in total strikes thrown, and outlanded Nasrat by 12 significant strikes. But when you watch that fight back, like you said, a lot of them were off the guard. So, like I said, he's clearly got the volume and the pace there to be able to push a pace and throw a lot of strikes. But like I said, if they're all bouncing off the guard, it's not a good look. And you could visibly see both guys were damaged. I do kind of disagree with you a little bit about the, Nasrat. Nasrat looked like he was wearing some damage a little bit too. But yeah, I was just a little bit disappointed that his fight IQ kind of let him down there, and he wasn't ripping to the body a little bit more. But good win for Nasrat. Nothing to take away from him, and maybe all of those sparring, all the sparring he's been doing with Calvin and all the sparring he's been doing with Rob Font, maybe that's paid off for him over at TriStar.
Well, I just want to throw this in there is like the reason why I said takedowns is I'm not a can I wrestle? Yeah. Can I do jiu-jitsu? Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm about a purple belt level in jiu-jitsu. And wrestling the whole time. The thing is, you've just got to learn to mix things up to make people respect the fight. Okay, so it's like I can go to the body with my hands. I don't just have to go upstairs all the time. That'll just get you thinking, oh, I got to block the body when his hands are up because he might go there, he might come here. Or I could kick your leg, you know what I mean, when I'm getting ready to strike. And it'll just make you think, that strike might be coming low, it might be coming high, I have no clue. Even when Ribovic, I think he threw like 2 kicks in the fight, they were both to the head. So I was like, you know what? You got to find a different target. Knockouts are awesome, I get it. And his volume, he's throwing like soft punches to the arms, to the forearms, to the shoulders, and he's looking for an opening. To create an opening against a guy who's got a high guard, you got to either pull his arms down or you got to go someplace else. If his elbows are up, go to the body. Didn't even try. I don't even think he looked at the body.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean is like whether you drop your level and punch to the body, that's different. Or whether you kick to the body like Hasperat was doing, that's different. Just something different is what you got to mix it in there. That's why I said with takedowns. I didn't like takedowns, but in my fights, I think I've actually got about 3 takedowns total in my fights. Why? Because it was just to keep somebody guessing. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, that's what I just expect is you want to keep the guy on his heels. You don't want him to keep you on your heels. And yeah, Ribovic was coming forward, but he was also coming forward and he's landing on the arms, landing on the forearms. And when there's an opening because his guard's down, Hasperat would throw a shot and you would see his head turn. Now, Ribovic has a chin. That's good to him, but you want to hold on to that chin for when you're in a war. He shouldn't have been in a war with Hasperat. And that's what I would like him to avoid.
No, you make a lot of good points. I do agree. I'm definitely a component of somebody who always says, like, at least get him thinking about the takedown, even if you're not necessarily going to get it. But, maybe Ribovic 2-3 years, Dagestan, send him and forget, brother. But no, what do you?
He doesn't have to turn into a wrestler. He just has to look at a different spot on the body to land too. You know what I mean? Just anything different. The guy is way too tough, way too talented and this is not a knock on Hackbrass. He's a good, solid fighter, but it's like he shouldn't have been losing. That fight shouldn't have been as difficult as he made it or he let it get. He
Yeah.
should have been able to dictate the pace of the fight because even when you look at the two of them in the ring, like Ribovic was also a bigger person in the ring, so he should have been able to forcefully, impose himself on Hackbrass, and he did, but it doesn't do you any good if you're throwing fastballs down the middle. He can time everything. He knows what's coming. You got to change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Change the speeds, change the power, change the angles, do something different.
Yeah.
And for God's sakes, move your head.
And I think as well, like we're also getting on him because I'm kind of speaking for you here, but I think it's because we both see potential in Ribovic and we both want to see him succeed because we see that potential. It's not like we're sitting here saying like, the guy sucks because he lost the fight and he didn't do this and he didn't do that. It's not because we think the guy sucks. It's purely because of the fact that we see that he has a lot of potential. The guy landed threw over 400 strikes in a 3-round fight. The guy clearly has some tools there where he can be successful in the division, push a pace. He's clearly a very, very talented guy, which is why I made the point that I'd like to see him go to a better gym than just training in Argentina with the guys he's training with. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Carlos. To me, it's just like I'm frustrated because I expect more out of him because I do see a lot of potential. I know that I think you probably feel the same, right? Yeah.
I just hate to see like talent like that fall because you know you're waiting for the fight of the night award. There's no need for you to have to continue to win that.
Yeah.
Win some fights, put some guys out. You can do the exact same thing and fight a little longer.
Yeah.
That's all.
For sure. For sure. 2-3 years Dagestan, brother. And next up, the somewhat controversial to some people main event. We have Asu claiming the eye poke from Cop before the finish there, and multiple times. I think it was twice during the fight where he thought he got poked in the eye, and they showed the replay where Cop had a closed fist from what I could see and from what they determined in the replay, and yeah, Cop with another good performance. I mean, I said to one of my buddies when we were talking about this during one of the fights that I think it was this one or it may have been the co-main event, but when Cop is on and he shows up to perform, he actually looks really, really good. He definitely looks like somebody that could hold the belt. Sometimes in the past, he's had some stinkers where, he kind of stands there and looks at his opponent and doesn't necessarily have the best showing. And like, for example, when he fought against Muhammad Mokaev, that fight ended up being an absolute stinker. But when he puts it all together, man, it's like he's right there. Great display of takedown defense. That's always impressed me. The fact that he's been able to get wrestlers off of him, and he's shown that now in a few fights that he's tough to take down. On the feet, he's lightning quick. He's got great stand up. He understands the game of mixed martial arts, and he's very marketable for the UFC too with some of the shit talking that he's got going on, which I really like. And yeah, like I said, I mean, hats off to him. Great performance. And I'll ask you, Carlos. Did you agree with the eye poke decision? Did you think it was just excuses? What was your take on the eye poke situation and Cop's performance?
I thought that the first eye poke was definitely especially after they reviewed it, and I didn't really think it was that big of a deal when it happened. But you never know what eye pokes. So they reviewed it. They realized it wasn't that big a deal, and he went to fight on. Didn't seem to be too affected. That second one, I don't know if a nail got to it because his finger didn't go all the way in. But as I saw the video of what his eye actually looks like a few days later, I'm like, yeah, there was a lot of damage done to it. So I think that in any scenario, when it comes to the eye poke, I think upon review, you should determine like, okay, let's see if this was an actual eye poke, or let's see if he was joking around. I feel like the referee thought that, you know what, the first one was fake. He's probably trying to fake this one too, and just kept fighting. And the way that he reacted, running in the wrong direction, is obviously because he couldn't see where anything Manel Cop was throwing or where it was coming from. So I think that was a little negligent on the part of the ref. Um, from boxing, you come over into MMA, and in boxing, if you get a thumb in the eye, which is, it sucks. It sucks a lot, and you lose vision in that eye for a little bit. If the referee doesn't see it, there's no review. There's no I got a thumb in the eye. The fighter can't stop it and say review it. So in that case, these guys are lucky enough to be able to be like, yeah, I got poked in the eye. The referee will stop it and review it.
Hmm.
But I think that Amabayev, just by, I don't want to say faking it, but a lot of guys, if you touch around their eye, will just fake that they got poked in the eye so that the referee's aware of it for next time. They'll review it, make the guy look like crap, give him a warning, and then back to the fight. And I think he kind of played himself on that
Hmm.
because the first one looked like a closed fist right to the eye.
Yeah.
And I think it was a shot that just stunned him and he just wanted a minute or two.
Yeah, I was going to say the first one when they reviewed it and they showed it, it was definitely a closed fist, and I'm with you. I think that's also the tough part of the officiating job. And I don't want to make excuses for these guys because I'm usually fairly harsh on them, especially that fucking bum Chris Tione. But he wasn't he wasn't the culprit in this week's eye poke scenario. But I just felt like I was with you. Like he looked like he tried to go for a way out with the eye poke in the first one. They reviewed it, saw it wasn't an eye poke, and then the second time around, he tried to call timeout and say it was an eye poke. I do think they have to treat every scenario where it's like a separate scenario. You can't just be like, oh, this guy faked the first eye poke, so therefore he's probably faking the second eye poke because that it might be the case that he did get poked in the eye. But what I would say is maybe introducing a scheme where they say, okay, like this guy's faked the first eye poke, he's faked the second eye poke, so next time, unless I, as the referee, see the eye poke, I'm not just going to let this guy try and call timeout. One of my buddies was saying to me too about the stoppage at the end. Did you kind of agree with the stoppage because Cop, although he didn't necessarily beat him down and Asu wasn't defending himself, he was kind of running away in that scenario. And some people were saying, like, I didn't really like the stoppage because he was still trying to defend himself by running away from Cop and things like that. But I do think Cop was on his way to getting a finish. It looked like he was on his way to sealing that fight off with a KO. I didn't necessarily hate the stoppage. It looked like Cop was probably about to kind of take over and do his thing. What did you think of the stoppage?
Well, it's just like with when you're on the ground and someone's pounding on you and you turn your back to them and you just put your hands up. Technically, you're defending yourself, but you got nowhere to go. The referee will stop it. It's like a mercy,
Mm,
you know. You're submitting without tapping. Uh, that's how I look at running. You know what I mean? If you can't mix it up in the fight and you turn your back and you turn into a track star in the middle of the fight several times, I think the fight's over in your eyes. You don't really want to fight. But with that said, that would probably, as a referee, make me step in to be like, all right, there's got to be something wrong with his eye. Let me treat this as an individual case. Now, the referee would have got shit for that because, Amabayev already ran in the opposite direction,
mm.
which obviously means he doesn't want any more of this fight. And the referee giving him time, if Amabayev were to come back and win, um, people would be upset that he's able to call his own timeout. You know what I mean? And you got to be lucky that the UFC gives you that, or the referee gives you that, the benefit of the doubt. Um, yeah, I just think that he played himself on the first one. If you turn your back and run, I would say once, in the way that he ran. But if you turn your back and run two or three times, yeah, I'll call the fight. I think that was fair enough.
Mm, mm. Yeah, the only guy that I know that runs away from his opponent is Yusuf Zalal. So we already talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So don't get me going on that fucking Roadrunner. Meet. Yeah, and not to take anything away from Cop too. I mean, at the end of the day, like he looked solid in there, great. You know, he was able to defend the takedowns. He did everything he was supposed to do at the end of the day. And he did also have a change of opponent. I know Asu did as well, but to be able to just stuff the takedowns from a high level wrestler, hats off to him. And again, Cop gets it done and looks impressive, and that's 2 in a row. And because of the division and Pantoja, you know, not having any opponent necessarily to fight, that's why they got in Kai Asakura for him to fight from Ryzen. You got to think Cop's next, right? And they already had a fight. For those that didn't know, they already had a fight way back in the early days of Cop's career. Pantoja was able to take that one, and when you watch that one back, Cop probably wants some revenge for that one purely because he just didn't really let his hands go. And I think Cop's really improved since then at stuff in the takedowns, which is something that Pantoja was able to try to mix in that first fight. I think Cop could give him a real tough fight, and I would like to see that fight moving forward. And I'm sure that's definitely what the UFC is looking to push. What are your thoughts on Cop going for the belt against Pantoja, and how do you see them matching up, Carlos?
Um, when, like I said earlier, when he comes ready to fight, it's going to be a war. The guy has unbelievable speed. Um, how's his chin when he gets hit with somebody shot like Pantoja? You know, because right now he walks through everybody's shot. I don't know if you ever really paid attention to that. He walks forward, his chin is sticking right out,
Mm.
and he just absorbs shots. He just knows that he can take it right now. I don't know how he's going to do taking a shot from Pantoja. The other thing is, when it comes to the grappling, I think Cop, against Makayev will kind of let you know how that fight could pan out because Pantoja's also gotten better at wrestling over the years, and Cop has gotten good with takedown defense. But Makayev was able to take him down whenever he felt like it. Pantoja's takedowns aren't like that. But if he's striking on the way in to force Cop to strike, and Cop already leans forward, he's going to get him to overextend and get to his waist to at least get a takedown. Cop's going to have to do a lot of moving against Pantoja. He's going to have to do a lot of body work, like just punching wise, drop levels to punch to the body to keep him honest, stop takedowns. But that's a fight I would love to see.
Mm.
I actually think it'll be way more competitive than when he fought Kai Asakura. Asakura's athletic and his strikes look clean and they look sharp. But I didn't think he was going to win that fight. I think we're in agreement. You didn't
Yeah,
think he was going to win that either.
yeah.
But yeah, he posed a threat. If he hit you, he might be able to hurt you. I think Cop is the bigger threat of the two.
Yeah, me and you were pretty unanimous that we thought Pantoja was going to smoke Kaya Sakura, so we've got proven right on that one for sure. And I agree. I think Pantoja is definitely a different animal, and I don't know about you, but I feel like Cop sometimes does rely a little bit on being faster than everybody. So he's not necessarily the most defensively solid, the most technical, but he knows, like, I'm just that much faster than everybody. With Pantoja, I don't know if he can get away with that one, but I will say that the thing I do like about Pantoja, and one of the reasons that he's been able to have a lot of success to me, is that I just think he's got that dog in him. Like Cop, when things don't go his way, what does he look like? Whereas when Pantoja, when things don't go his way, you know that he's going to bite down on his mouthpiece. He's going to mix in takedowns. He's going to find a way to continue to push in the fight. And that to me is what makes him the champion right now and what's given him so much success. But I mean, Cop's always live for a finish. He's got, explosive flying knees and stuff up the middle. So, like I said, I think that'll be a great fight. It's definitely one I'm looking forward to. And both guys are very marketable. And some of the one-liners and some of the shit talk that, like I said earlier, that Cop comes out with is brilliant. I mean, I remember after his win against, I don't think it was last Saturday, but maybe the last fight that he had, he's like, he's at the press conference and he's like, and fuck you, Adesanya. And like they showed a video of
Yeah.
Izzy like, what the fuck? Like, what did I do? Like, these guys aren't even anywhere near the same weight division. He just randomly, he's like, fuck you, Adesanya. But he's just pretty funny, and like the broken up English has me cracking up. So Cop's kind of somebody that's grown on me a little bit, especially after that bullshit performance against Makayev, where they both acted like they wanted to fight each other and beat each other's brains out, and then ended up staring at each other for 15 minutes. But he's impressed me since then, and he's definitely somebody that I think Pantoja should take very seriously, and it's one that I'm looking forward to seeing. And this is the moment everybody has been waiting for. UFC 313, Ankalaev taking on Alex Pereira. And if you've made it this far so far and you're here for the full card breakdown, hit that like and subscribe button here on the Ground and Pound podcast. We break down everything every single week when we're talking UFC and MMA. And before we do get into the fights, I just want to ask Carlos, how did your research go this week? What were your thoughts on some of the matchups and some of the fights that you're looking forward to seeing on this card?
Oh, everything. I did stumble. Right now it's going to be a last second decision on a few of these fights, but it's not bad. I think that the card's going to be very competitive. A lot of these names aren't, like I said, they're not the hugest names in the sport. If you're a fight fan, these are some fights that you can't wait to see. If you're a casual, you're probably like just looking forward to the main card. But I think that casual or fight fan, diehard, I think this is going to be very competitive, and everybody will get their money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be honest with you, this is one I was very excited about. The more I broke down these fights and the more it got closer towards doing this podcast with you today, I was excited for a few of these matchups. And Alex Pereira, in terms of the sport right now, I think that he has got to be top 3 in terms of the names. When I think of the top guys in terms of popularity, he's crushing it when it comes to popularity and his the walkout, the bow and arrow, the shama. He's got it all going for him right now, and he's definitely somebody that I enjoy watching. The story of him coming up, throughout the UFC, being the boogeyman to Israel Adesanya, and maybe this week, maybe we find out that Ankalaev is Alex's boogeyman, but we'll find out. But you ready to break down these fights?
Let's do it.
Let's get it. First up, kicking off the card, we have Ozzy Diaz taking on Djorden Santos. And I'm going to pass this one over to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this one kicking off the card?
Of course, you let me start off with the two scrubs. Neither one of these guys were very impressive. Djorden seems decent. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not stiff. He moves pretty decently. He's the more athletic of the two. I think this fight might be it might be competitive because they're pretty much both at the same level. Ozzy Diaz might, he can be chinny at times, and I feel that who I'm taking in this one is Santos. That he can come out because Diaz he's okay. He's not bad, but like I said, he's going to want to mix it up on the feet. He's probably going to want to press him up against the cage and try to clinch him, but I don't really see that happening. Ozzy's kind of a lumbering guy, even though he's down to 185 for this fight. I do think that, like I said, he's not very fleet of foot. He's not light on his feet. He's not quick. He's not. And I just think that Santos has the speed advantage. I think he's going to get to his chin before Ozzy can get to his. And I think if he doesn't knock him out, I think he's going to hurt him in this fight, and he'll end up getting the decision if it goes there. I don't really see it going that way, but I do see a little bit of back and forth, and someone's going to get stung. And I think that someone's going to be Diaz.
Yeah, two picks for Santos here from me as well. I agree. I'm right there with you. Santos didn't really wow me on the Contender Series when I watched his performance. The two skills that I really picked up that he has is he has good takedown defense, whether that be up against the cage or whether that just be people shooting at his legs. He's pretty good at sprawling and keeping the fight standing. And he has a nice 1-2. He'll throw that 1-2 as a pretty solid combination, but he's not necessarily the most athletic guy. He is a little bit flat-footed at times, but out of the two, he's going to look like the more athletic guy. He's obviously making his UFC debut, so it's not somebody that I could be super confident on. I think that's obviously why Carlos and I obviously had the hesitation for the first fight of the night. But when it comes to Ozzy Diaz, the guy used to fight up at light heavyweight, and he was the former middleweight LFA champion. So you kind of think, maybe this guy's not bad. LFA, solid organization. So I go watch some tape on the guy, and I got to say, I mean, like, the fights that I saw, he was fighting a guy called Lewis, and this guy Lewis had a couple of fights in Bellator, a couple of fights in PFL, and he was getting dog walked by this guy, and this guy is nowhere near the level of Santos, and he was getting dog walked for the whole entire first round, the whole entire second round, and then the guy kind of gasses out, and Diaz just takes over and is able to finish him in the second round. And I got to say, like, he was losing about 90% of that fight up until that point. I think Diaz thinks that he has power, but he doesn't. He does look slimmer and does look a little bit more in shape as a fighter at 185, but realistically, when he fights at 205, it's just basically him but fat. So he's out of shape over a light heavyweight. It's definitely not a light heavyweight because he's already pretty slow and flat-footed as well. I say all of that and do all of this breakdown just to basically say that I'm going with Santos with hardly any confidence just because it's his UFC debut, but this is somebody realistically I feel like he should beat. Ozzy Diaz just doesn't really have a whole lot for him outside of landing a big shot that anybody could land on anybody in MMA at any point. I feel like Santos should be able to get it done here. And Diaz to me is just somebody who's just not UFC level. And every fight I watched of his, he's getting dog walked until he either finds a finish because his opponent gasses or he gets finished pretty early in the first round. So I'm going with Santos to get it done in this opening bout. And next up, kicking off the prelims here, we have Chris Gutierrez taking on John Sexy Mexi Castaneda. We've seen this one, obviously come together pretty last minute here. And Chris Gutierrez was supposed to fight on this card. He was meant to fight Gene Matsumoto, but they obviously took Gene Matsumoto and put him against Rob Font a couple of weeks back. John Castaneda obviously was the unfortunate cancellation last week when he was supposed to fight Silva de Andrade. So obviously they've put these two together just to kind of kick off the prelims and both in the same weight. Now, I was reading that this fight is going to take place at 140 or 145. So John Castaneda doesn't have to cut weight again the second time. And Chris Gutierrez, obviously, he's supposed to fight Gene Matsumoto, so that he's not actually going to have to cut that much weight either, which might be a blessing in disguise for both gentlemen. But who do you have in this one, Carlos?
I'm going to go with Mr. Gutierrez here. Gutierrez, if he gets his leg kicks going early, even though Castaneda moves a lot, if he starts getting them going early, he's going to take that movement away. I think Castaneda's hands are a little bit busier than Gutierrez, but I think Gutierrez is a little bit more accurate with his striking. The takedown defense, he's slick, he's smooth. I like Gutierrez. I don't think anything Castaneda could do to force him to do anything he doesn't want to do, like to rush for a takedown, rush a strike, have to pivot or run backwards, anything. And I think that those are the intangibles that Chris has that's going to be able to push the pace of this fight. And the only thing I don't like about Gutierrez, there's kind of no sense of urgency sometimes.
Yeah.
Even as you hurt, there's no sense of urgency to finish. Hopefully he'll notice it, probably try to put a little stamp on it, but I think he's gonna get it done. I'll say decision because that's Gutierrez's style, so I'm going with that.
Yeah, you actually gave me a nice segue there to talk about this fight. I agree that Chris Gutierrez, sometimes he leaves a little bit to be desired. Like, he's quite happy to fight on the outside. He's happy to chip away at the calf kicks, and he gets pressed back against the fence or people will walk him down a lot. And to me, in a lot of his fights, they end up being much closer than what they should be. And for that reason and that reason alone, I'm going to pick John Castaneda. It's not one I love, and I got to be honest, it's one of the tougher fights for me to pick this week. There's a lot of intangibles, so it's from a betting perspective and from a picking perspective, I find this one quite difficult because Gutierrez leaves a lot to be desired. Like I said, he'll chip away at the calf, but he won't necessarily go to the body and head as much as I like, especially with the hands. He does have nice cardio. He'll mix in occasional takedowns, and he will look to mix things up on the feet. He's not necessarily somebody that will go to the ground game, but he has it in his back pocket. But he's just always somebody who seems to be in a fight where, like Carlos said, where he doesn't do enough. There's not that sense of urgency. Whereas to me, John Castaneda, he lost to Daniel Marcos, which is no shame in losing to Daniel Marcos. He's been on a pretty good tear in his last fight. But to me, he has those intangibles to be able to walk Gutierrez down. So even though I do think Gutierrez will have success on the feet with the calf kick, I could just see Castaneda letting his hands go a little bit more, throwing a little bit more volume, mixing in takedowns. And also as well, when you talk about like ring generalship, which is something that the judges do look at, I feel like Gutierrez is going to be the one backing up and be kind of circling on the outside, whereas Castaneda is going to be the one that's pressing forward and looking to land shots and engage in action. So I'm going to go with Castaneda. Not confident at all. Probably one of my least confident picks on the card. I'm going to say by decision as well. I think this is pretty much how both of these guys get it done for the most part. I just have a hard time picking Chris Gutierrez in fights when he leaves it so close to the judges. And I think maybe Castaneda takes out a little bit of anger on the fact that his fight got canceled last week and comes in here with a point to prove. And he's fighting somebody that's higher up the rankings too. I mean, Chris Gutierrez was I'm pretty sure he may have been ranked in the top 15 or just outside the top 15. So yeah, he gets a higher ranked opponent. So I'm sure he's going to be looking to get it done this week. So I'm going to go with Castaneda.
Before you switch to that, the one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, I'm not talking myself out of it, is the Gutierrez style. And when I say his style, I like his style as a striker. I like the fact that he can hurt you to the legs. I like the fact that he doesn't really rely on always having to go to the head. A lot of times he doesn't even go to the body. What I think in MMA, what has to happen is judges really need to take into effect how damaging leg kicks are, because that's why a lot of his fights are incredibly close. If he doesn't visibly have you limping or like falling down from leg kicks, he can land 5 kicks that completely slow down the fighter, start to cripple him even in the fight, but if that fighter lands a 1-2 down the middle and it's clean, they're going to be like, oh, that's what won the round for that guy. He visibly hurt him. And I'm thinking to myself, I go, it's funny how the American culture, we really enjoy boxing, but then you take those rules from the judges, and when the cleaner punches land, you're going to give it to that guy, but the other dude can't even walk. You know what I mean? And they don't give him his due diligence, and that's the thing. Is like he definitely has the ability to be higher on the judges' scorecards, but the ring ship sometimes, and the fact that he doesn't really headhunt, he doesn't throw a lot of shots to the head, and that's another thing that if I'm in his corner, I'm like, hey, just throw a jab at least,
Yeah.
not just the leg kicks.
Yeah. And I think as well with Chris Gutierrez that I've seen fights before where he'll have a little cut under his cheek, and it's kind of to the point that you said, where he'll have his opponent limping and visibly damaged in the calf with the low calf kicks, but because he's got that cut across his face, maybe from one shot, one elbow, or whatever in the 3-round fight, the judges see that and think that there's the damage. So I do have to agree with you that he probably does a lot more damage to his opponent than what the judges do give him credit for, which is why it makes it tougher for me to pick him, which is why I did go with Castaneda. But at the same time, I do have to admit that the amount of damage that he does accumulate over the course of 3 rounds with the calf kicks is definitely not something to be sniffed at for sure. And next up, we have Francis Fire Marshall taking on Mairon Santos. And I'm going to kick this one off. I kind of, this to me was a pretty straightforward one, if I'm being really honest. I was fairly impressed with Santos over on The Ultimate Fighter when he fought against Offley in the final. He showed every single skill set that I feel like he's going to need for this fight. When he was able to come into that fight, he was able to keep the fight standing. Offley comes in, shoots for the legs, tries to get the fight to the ground. He's a heavy grappler, wrestler style, and we've seen him obviously fight a couple of times now in the UFC. And Santos did exactly what you'd expect. He trains over at Extreme Couture, so him and the guys over there, he's getting some high-level looks. 15-1, so he's got a very nice record. Still only 24, so I expect him to always be improving. But the skills that he demonstrated in that fight against Oakley, was able to keep the fight standing and show his levels on the feet. I really like the fact that he goes to the calf. He keeps everything tight. He always brings his hands back to his face. He doesn't get into a brawl. He circles out very well. And I also believe as well, even though we've not necessarily seen it, he can get into brawls and he can show some toughness in fights if he needs to make fights dirty. But ultimately, he's usually the guy that can be more technical. And to me, Francis Marshall, he's been beaten twice now in the UFC. In both of his wins, he's won two, lost two. His two wins have come against some very low-level guys. He beat Bazookian, which is not a good win in the UFC. I think that guy has a losing record within the organization. And he fought a guy that's been cut from the UFC that also had a losing record. The two other fights he had, it was Isaac Delgarian. He got smashed in that fight because he was the lesser wrestler. And to me, he's going to look to try to get this fight to the ground. I don't think he's going to have success in getting Santos to the ground. I think this is going to look just like the Oakley fight. I think he's going to try and shoot. I do think that he can show a little bit more toughness than what Oakley did. I think Marshall has a better chin than Oakley does. But ultimately, I think it's going to be night and day for Santos on the feet. So I'm going to pick him here to get it done. Maybe he gets the finish on the feet. Could also be a decision, but I feel fairly good about Santos. I think this is a nice welcome to the UFC, nice, easy sort of wean you into the organization type of matchup here against Marshall. But who do you have in this one, Carlos?
Well, I did go with how was the name? Is it Mairon
I
Santos?
think it's Mairon. Yeah, Mairon Santos. I butchered the
Okay,
name
Mairon
there,
Santos. That's okay. I saw two different spellings online, so I wasn't sure exactly what was the right one. And I went with Santos because one of the fights that I thought swayed that was against what was the name you just said? I just watched it. Delgarian.
Oh yes, yeah. Isaac
Yeah,
Delgarian.
yeah, and I understand Santos isn't going to have that type of a style, but I figured Marshall, he's a solid wrestler too. He should have the ability to hang with him pretty easy, and it didn't work out that way, And the other thing was with against Offley, Offley, I didn't get to see the fight, but it was a fast finish. So in my eyes, I'm like, you know what? Uh, at least I thought it was a fast finish. I think I saw a highlight of it, but um, I didn't get to see any takedown defense in that one. But I did get to see him fight a couple other fights. I can't remember the name of it. He had good takedown defense. He was able to peel guys' arms off and everything. But I assume Marshall's a bigger person. Like, other than Offley, it should be a little bit more difficult. But either way, I feel like Santos is probably going to get this. But I don't know why I don't think it's going to be easy. I just think he's going to get the victory.
Yeah, I will say I do think that Francis Marshall can make this more of a dogfight than Offley did for Santos's UFC debut, and I do say that he's also not proven yet. You see 15-1, but 15-1 is a lot of those fights aren't against the best competition. But my argument with Marshall is if you look at his record as well, he also doesn't fought the best level of competition either. So that's kind of why I'm doing the 15-1 against bad competition. But I just think that Santos just has that skill set to keep it on the feet, and I think the fights that I've seen of Marshall striking, he just looks like he kind of wings punches and he's not as technical. He really uses those shots to try to set up his takedowns, whereas Santos wants to strike with you, but he can also keep it on the feet with his takedown defense. But it's one of those ones where it's like, Santos could make us both look stupid because he's not necessarily tested and proven yet, whereas Marshall's 4 fights into the UFC. But I feel fairly confident about Santos. And next up, we have Alex Morono taking on Carlos Leal. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
Well, I've got Leal in this one. And, he has his debut loss against Holy buckets. I'm going to Renat. That's all I'm
Renat
going to say. I can't remember
Fakhretdinov.
that last name. Fakhretdinov. There we go. He's got his loss there, but if you watch the fight, I don't think that was a loss at all. Um, I don't even think it was close for them to say it was a loss, but I thought he legitimately won 2 rounds in that. He's a solid puncher, heavy leg kicks. Um, I factored the age into it, even though Morono is not that much older than him. 30. I'm going to say he's a little hungrier. He wants it a little bit more. Um, I'll give him. I'll give the edge to him for that. And he's very difficult to take down. Um, he can, in terms of grappling, because Morono is a. I know he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and a lot of they say he's highly decorated in jiu-jitsu, but not through tournament. I don't understand what it is, but they say he's very good at jiu-jitsu. I never really see him go to the ground at all, and I don't think Leal's going to have a problem with that. I never noticed this until because I watch Morono, but I never break down his fights until you said that, and you go, I don't have a problem with him until he starts spinning, and as soon as he started spinning, the spinning back fist or whatever, then he started losing the fight because he got a little happy. I think he did spinning back fist about 4 times,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the fight started to go south. Um, he himself was on a 2-fight losing streak, I think, and he might be showing signs of a decline. I've seen some good victories from him. And I've seen some bad losses, and he still has pretty decent movement. Um, his striking is there. He just seems to be a step behind. I mean, this is not a knock on Nico Price, but if you're losing to Nico Price, there's a decline. There's something happening. And that's why I said 34 is not that big of a difference from 30. But Nico Price is just somebody you put in there to give the crowd something to cheer for when someone gets knocked out, whether it's Price or the opponent. And he actually had a difficult time with Price. So I can't say that he's going to beat Leal. That'd be pretty stupid. So I'm going with Carlos Leal.
I was going to start my breakdown off by asking you if you remembered what I said about Alex Morono. So clearly you remembered exactly what I was going to say. But I've been somebody that's called a lot of Alex Morono fights almost spot on. I think the only one I got wrong was him fighting the Dagger, the Argentinian Dagger, where he was winning the whole fight as an underdog, and then he got knocked out in the 3rd round or whatever, which was a real shame. But I'm fairly decent at calling Alex Morono fights, and I do not feel good about him in this matchup. I feel like Carlos Leal is probably one of my most confident picks on this card. I think that the only way that Alex is going to win this fight is if Carlos Leal decides to shoot a takedown and Morono guillotines him. I think that's honestly the only way that this fight is going to go for Alex if he wants to get the win. If it stays on the feet, I think Leal is night and day the heavier-handed guy. He's got a lot of experience in MMA. Obviously, as you can see, 21-6 in the UFC. Not in the UFC, in MMA overall. He did beat Renat in that last fight. Carlos and I both picked Leal as an underdog. That was complete and utter bullshit, and I don't know how the judges got away with that. I think one of the judges gave Renat 30-27. What was that about? Fucking sort it out. Oil money. Bullshit. Anyway, Leal definitely won that fight, and Alex Morono is definitely a step down in competition. Leal should be able to get it done on the feet. I don't think he should mix in any grappling. Alex Morono is a decorated black belt that decides to never ever grapple, which he just said he likes to throw down on the feet. So hats off to Alex Morono, the great white, for being somebody that likes to give the fans what they want. But I think it's going to be night and day for Leal. I think he's going to smash Alex Morono on the feet here. Feel very, very confident about it. And like I said, guys, just, the first round, just keep an eye on Alex. He's going to be fine. But then the second round comes, if we get there and Alex is tired, start noticing he's going to start doing helicopters in the octagon, and he will be spinning. And just know that just means Leal's going to start taking over from there, because once he gets tired, he'll start spinning back fist. He might do a couple in a row, and that just means Alex is tired. So, yeah, I'm going with Leal to turn Alex Morono into a helicopter this week.
Correct. The Great White.
White. And next up, we have got Brunno, the Hulk Ferreira, taking on Arman Petrosyan. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this banger?
Okay. So I think right before this, you told me that Petrosyan is the favorite going into this,
That is correct.
right?
Slight favorite. Yep.
Okay. I understand why he's the favorite. I think you understand why he's the favorite. We all know about his credentials. The one thing that gets me is Bruno Ferreira blitzing because Petrosyan will just stand there. And I'm like, does Ferreira actually have the power to put him out? You know what I mean? Like, can Petrosyan roll with it enough? Is he tall enough where he leans back, he can avoid it? And I'm like, I don't know.
With a name like Hulk?
That's well, the thing is yes, his name is Hulk, but he's sloppy. You know what I mean? Like he's now at the point where he doesn't just swing wild. He just doesn't throw all the volume that he normally used to. He kind of calmed down on that, and now he actually like swings. I don't know, maybe when he sees an opening, but instead of before he would swing to create an opening. And Petrosyan likes to stay busy. The problem is he likes to stay busy with some light shots, and he likes to stand in one spot with his head straight up, and he doesn't move when he's throwing. And I go, is that where Ferreira gets his opening? So this was a hard one to call. I'm gonna go with it right now, and I'm gonna say Petrosyan. I'm gonna go with you, but for some reason I feel like the dog might pull this off. So um, this is gonna be a close one. So I'd say yeah, but I'm going Petrosyan with this one. What do you got?
Mm. When you said, does he have the power on the, and I said with a name like Hulk, it reminded me of Rocky, where he says, can he swim with a name like Rock? Um, but yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree with everything that you said. I'm going with the Hulk, baby. I'm going with Ferreira, man. I'm going with the underdog here. And there's one thing that you didn't really talk too much about, and I do agree with everything that you said. Petrosyan does keep his head on the center line. He kind of stands right in front of you. He's the more credentialed, more well-polished striker. Um, he did get finished by Bullet in his last fight, the double spinning back fist highlight. He in the fight before that, he got choked out by Rodolfo Vieira. Don't even get me fucking started on Rodolfo Vieira's bullshit performance the other week against Petrovsky. Anyway,
Hey, he didn't do bad. He didn't do bad.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, whatever. Um, yeah, so I do think that Petrosyan is the more skilled stand-up fighter. The secret with him is that people need to be able to take him down to the ground, and that's where I'm going to kind of come in with the Hulk. And Ferreira, even though he's not necessarily known to be a wrestler, he does have a lot of strength, and he has a black belt in judo. He's meant to be a very high-level judo black belt, and I believe I forget which fight it was that. In a few of his fights, he's not been able to actually implement a whole lot of grappling because a lot of the people that he's fought have been very credentialed grapplers themselves. Gregory Rodriguez, for example, Nalton Rozaboyev. They've all been pretty big, nasty grapplers themselves. So it's pretty hard for him to implement that kind of game plan. Even when he fought against Abus in his last fight, Abus is, from Dagestan, has wrestling in his back pocket, and that was able to be what he was able to fall back on whenever Ferreira was landing a big shot. And to me, when I watched that fight back with Abus, even though Abus is chipping away at him and, standing on the outside, which is kind of what I expect Petrosyan to do and to look good in moments, Ferreira was able to have that one moment where he just catches him and, Abus looks like he's on skates and, Brunno touches him and you can just see the whole momentum of the fight shift. And the thing with Abus is he could fall back on the wrestling. So once he got clipped, he would take Ferreira down. He'd lay on top. He'd kind of get his wits about him. Whereas Arman doesn't have that. So the way that I see this fight playing out is Petrosyan's going to have success on the feet. He's going to be the one, kind of dictating where the fight takes place on the feet. He's going to look good until he doesn't. And then Petrosyan is going to get clipped. He's going to get dropped. Ferreira's going to be the one either on top in mount, beating him up, or he finishes him on the feet, where we've seen Petrosyan get finished many a times, even though he is a skilled kickboxer. So I'm going to go with the Hulk this week, and I like him as an underdog. He's somebody that I'm going to bet on this week for sure. I think that on the feet, he can get it done with his power, even though I do think Petrosyan is the better striker. But I like to see Ferreira mix in some takedowns. If he mixes in some takedowns, we've seen Petrosyan struggle to get back to his feet before, and I think Ferreira could definitely have a lot of success getting the fight to the ground. So you're giving me the underdog with a guy that I think has more power, that can definitely catch a guy that's proven that his chin might not necessarily be the best in Petrosyan. And on top of that, you've got a guy that can also mix in some grappling too. So, yeah, I like Ferreira this week. He's not my top dog, but he's definitely he's on the dog list this week to get some of my money for sure. And next up, we have Joshua Van, the youngsters going in on this one. Joshua Van taking on Riat Tatsuru. And I'm pretty sure I butchered that name, but these two youngsters, I'm excited to see this one. Who do you have in this one, Carlos?
Um, so this is just to go back to what you just said earlier. I wish I could feel so confident in that the Bruno Ferreira pick of yours. I just Petrosyan is pretty much like a boost. The problem is that height difference, skilled striker. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but you almost sold me where I'm like, should I have gone with my first pick and went with Bruno? And I'm like, nope, I'm staying with Petrosyan. So I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna listen to any more of the evil coming out of your mouth. It's gonna sway me in the other direction. But okay, so with Ray here, I'm assuming it's Ray, right?
Yeah, that's right.
With Ray Tsuruya. Okay,
Tsuruya,
we're gonna
that's
go
it.
with
Yeah,
that.
the T
Hey,
is
Tsuruya.
silent. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I mean, he's got good grappling, good submission skills. I think they said he was a junior Olympic wrestler. Um, he gets some funky takedowns. You know, it's not just the basic, I'm going to shoot, take you down, get you against the cage, take you down. He'll actually jump to your back too, that I've seen in some of his video. And that's all well and beautiful, but I'm going with Joshua Van. I like this kid. Um, he scrambles well. Will he be able to scramble better than Tsuruya? I don't know, but he scrambles well. Uh, Good enough to get himself out of danger with Cody Durden. I think Cody Durden's probably a higher level of wrestler than Tsuruya. Um, Tsuruya on his feet, not the biggest threat. Everything he does is to get it to the ground. I think Van, if he's smart about this, could turn this right into that Cody Durden fight.
Hmm.
High level grappler like Tsuruya is going to want to take you down. I think he could play it that way. And I see the same outcome. So I'm going Joshua Van.
Yeah, Carlos likes Joshua Van, and yeah, I'm gonna be perfectly honest and just say I'm a fucking hater. I really don't like Joshua Van. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I just don't like the kid. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I just think he's a little bit overrated. He's only 23, so maybe I need to hop off a little bit. But I am going to pick him in this one, which worries me a lot because I don't think I've picked him in any of his fights. Or if I have, it's I've been looking to fade him quite a few times in the Chavez fight that he had. He had a pretty back and forth fight with him, and he shows a lot of skills, especially for someone that's only 23. I like his boxing. He does have nice boxing, and he has shown an ability to get takedowns. I don't think that he's going to do that in this fight. Tsuruya is, as Carlos said, a very decorated grappler, and in his last fight against Carlos Hernandez, he showed that his ability to be able to scramble, to be in a lot of weird positions, and he even showed like a belly to back suplex or a belly to belly suplex in that fight, which I thought was pretty impressive too. And at 22 years old, you know, the guy's still got a lot of room to grow and a lot of skills that he could demonstrate and improve on. And he's somebody that I think moving forward, he's going to be very entertaining. We'll probably see him on like a Japanese card that they have later on down the line, but the reason I'm going with Van is purely because if this fight stays on the feet, and that's where I think Joshua Van's going to try to keep the fight, it's going to be night and day for him with the hands. He doesn't necessarily throw a ton of kicks, so we don't have to worry about him throwing some bullshit head kick and getting taken down. It's mostly going to be boxing out of Van, which I like. I think him moving forward and letting his combinations go and not overextending. He tends to be quite crisp. with his strikes. He doesn't overextend, so I think that's going to be difficult for Tsuruya to get the takedowns too. And we saw in the Cody Durden fight that Van does a good job of splitting the legs, digging for underhooks, and really making it difficult for people to try to take him down. The only reason I kind of have a little bit of cause for concern is that Tsuruya doesn't necessarily go for the most traditional takedowns. He's not shooting doubles and singles all the time. Like I said, he kind of mixes it in, gets kind of funky with it, but just stuff that we've not seen before. So I just worry that Van gets, clinched up or something and gets taken down, and he's not able to scramble out of a particular position, whereas Tsuruya is, obviously high level on the ground and definitely going to have the advantage on the ground. I'm just going to predict that it's not going to get there, and Joshua Van's going to be able to keep it standing and have success on the feet. I actually think that Van might get a finish on the feet if he's able to keep it there. And if the fight does go to the ground, I think Tsuruya's live for a submission. So I think the fight not going the distance seems fairly likely here to me, even though it's priced at underdog odds, which kind of surprised me. I think either guy could necessarily get a finish here. But to be perfectly honest, not super confident in Van, not super confident in Tsuruya. But I'm just picking the more credentialed guy, the more proven guy at this point in Joshua Van in the UFC to get it done on Saturday.
Just a question. What about Joshua Van turns you off? Because when I see Van fight, kind of see a little bit raw, like maybe one step down from Ribovics in terms of skill. You know what I mean? And he has the ability there. He hasn't opened up all the tools yet. I just wish that these new strikers, when it comes, it's great to love boxing, and Van loves it, and so does Ribovics. I just wish that they would mix it up a little bit more, make the fight a little easier. But what is it about Van that turns you off?
To be honest with you, it's probably just a little bit of bias just towards the fact that some of the performances that he's had in the past have been where he's been marked as a big favorite and he's gone to a very, very close decision or a very close performance with somebody that I've taken and picked the underdog. And then I've been like, oh, if he fights somebody a little bit better, he's going to struggle. And he goes to the next performance and he beats the next guy as a big favorite, but it's only just, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you see the holes, but no one's other than maybe like Charles Johnson has been able to exploit. So it's one of those things where I think that it's probably more of he's beaten guys I've picked against him in the past. So it's probably that's the bias. I do think he's good. I mean, like his boxing against Cody Durden was impressive to me. I like his little shovel uppercut that he's got. He fights behind a jab. His boxing is impressive, and he sticks to that. So you know what you're going to get from him. I think it's more of I'm looking to fade him, but the right opponent's not come along yet. I think that's where the hatred does come from. But to be fair, 23 years old, like the guy is nowhere near his prime. He's probably got 5 years before he hits his prime. So in 5 years' time, let's see what he looks like. But and the same for Tsuruya. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy's 22 years old. Two very young and up and coming guys. They could both make vast improvements between now and the ages of 28 to 30, where they're going to be in their physical prime. So I do think that Joshua Van is somebody that could be good in the UFC. He could definitely build with the UFC, but I just have that little personal bias that I haven't been able to get over with. So,
all right, just curious.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm always honest over here at the Ground and Pound podcast, and somebody that I am going to be honest about is Curtis Blaydes taking on. This is a name and a half. Buckle up. We've got Rizvan Kuniev. I think I nailed it. And I'm going to kick this one off. I started off the breakdown saying about being honest. And to me, Curtis Blaydes is somebody that I'm so fucking tired of. Curtis Blaydes really pisses me off because he's somebody that I think could be so much better than what he is. And he just refuses to wrestle now. He got all the way to the top of the division. He decided, I'm going to show everybody that I have high-level wrestling. And he just chooses not to wrestle anymore, and that opens up a lot of his fights to be much closer and him to take much more damage against guys that he could have success on the ground against. So there came a point a long time ago where I stopped betting on him just because he refused to wrestle, so I would constantly fade him. It's worked out very, very well because for a lot of the people that he's standing on the feet with now, Pavlovich and Other than Almeida, he's pretty much been able to have success. You know, I've been having success fading against Curtis Blaydes. Kuniev, I mean, the guy did not look impressive on the UFC's Contender Series. He fought against a no-name guy that he was mostly getting clinched up against the fence, and as you can see from his body type, he's not somebody that looks like he can go 3 rounds at a hard, heavy pace, grueling pace. It will turn into a pretty sloppy heavyweight fight. And the thing with Kuniev is when you look at his record, you'll see he actually has a win over Renan Ferreira over in PFL, who's obviously one of the top guys over there at heavyweight. But he popped for multiple PEDs, and ever since then, his physique's changed. Obviously, he's not been able to take those performance enhancers, and he's not necessarily somebody that I've been that impressed with ever since then. And to get that win over Ferreira, I mean, says if you can beat him, you could probably beat Curtis Blaydes, especially a Curtis Blaydes that refuses to wrestle. So that makes this one tough for me. But since Kuniev isn't popping pills like Ivan Drago anymore, and Curtis Razor Blaydes is losing to the top guys in the division, and Kuniev's not proven anything yet, I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes, but I haven't picked Curtis Blaydes in years, so this is probably, again, one of my least confident picks on the card. I can't honestly sit there and say bet on Curtis Blaydes because he doesn't do what got him to the dance. And Kuniev also is from Dagestan. He can wrestle as well, and obviously he could potentially take the fight to Curtis Blaydes to the ground as well. So I'm not super confident in this fight. It's probably going to end up being a sloppy heavyweight fight, and give me Curtis Blaydes, who's a little bit more athletic and fights behind a jab. So going with Blaydes. Who you got in this one?
Well, before I tell you, I'm a little disgusted with your body shaming there. He pretty much looks exactly like I do. This is why I'm like, why do you hate me so much? He's not as jacked as Big Country Roy Nelson, but he's got quite the physique on him. I like when I see a heavyweight with that fat boiler on him there. I'm like, is he in shape? Is he not in shape? I don't know. It always throws you off. But I went with Blaydes too. I don't really see any reason why he shouldn't win this fight. I know they said the other guy can wrestle as well. I've seen him fight. He swings a little wild.
Yeah.
And Curtis Blaydes loves to eat punches now, so I don't know. He might be able to land one of those right on his chin, but I think the better option is to take Curtis Blaydes in this one. At least that's what I did. Kuniev, I've seen him fight, and I wasn't like incredibly impressed. He keeps a high pace. Whether he was on PEDs or not at the time, I have no clue. But when you said his physique changed, did he look like this? When he was on PEDs,
he didn't look. He didn't necessarily ever look in shape. Like, he always had a bit of a belly on him, but he didn't look as fat as what he does in the picture that you're currently seeing on your screen.
Okay, because he looks like the same guy that fought Brunno Ferreira. That's why I was like, oh, well, I guess you don't need to physically change. You just need to chemically change, I guess.
That's a great advertisement for steroids right there. Like, take these pills and you'll look exactly the same.
Well, look at I'm sure Kuniev was the type of guy at the gym that's like, oh, if I take him, I'd look like Arnold Schwarzenegger too. Not even close. I want everybody to pay attention to that. You might look like Kuniev at the end of this. Who knows?
Look at you body shaming Kuniev.
That's all right, man. I know when I'm fat. I'm cool
disgusted.
I'll go with Curtis Blaydes.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. It's really hard to pick a fighter who's clearly been on performance enhancers and been relying on performance enhancers to beat higher level competition, and then now he's off of them. It's like, what's the guy going to look like? Then he fights on Contender Series against a guy that who's literally a step down in competition from his last 2 opponents, and he knocked him out in the first round, but it was like he's getting held up against a fence the whole time. It was just an ugly fight. And then on the other side, you got Curtis Blaydes, who's super hard to trust anyway. It's a sloppy heavyweight fight. I probably spent way too much time talking about it. I'm going with Blaydes as well.
Yeah, we did.
And next up, this one I'm looking forward to, and Carlos knows why. We've got King Green, a.k.a. Bobby Green, as I refuse to call him King Green, taking on my boy Ruffy. And I'm going to pass this one over to Carlos. I already know who I'm going with. Carlos already knows who I'm going with. Who you got in this one, Carlos?
Well, I'm going to go with the same thing. I'm going with Mauricio. Uh, Now, since he's Brazilian, is it Ruffy or Hoofy?
Uh, uh,
That's what I was trying to figure out.
I think it's
They always say Ruffy.
yeah, Ruffy. That's what I call
Yeah,
him. But
okay,
yeah.
okay. I was just curious.
I got him.
So
I got him saved
this
as
was
Ruffy in my phone. So
this is kind of an easy breakdown for me, is because this may not even go this way. I might be jinxing this fight, but I do think that Bobby Green keeps his hands down, and Mauricio will lead in with a punch, like with a strike, most likely a punch. And yeah, Green with his hands down, for some reason, I just see this fight like Jalin Turner versus Bobby Green.
mm,
Jalin Turner is too skilled of a guy to just keep your hands down and move your head, especially when you're not faster than the guy. And at 38 years old, I think your reflexes are probably not all there. Ruffy, on the other hand, he's quick, he's smooth, he's never going to see that strike coming. And this may end the exact same way. I think he's going to put out Bobby Green. If you can't keep your hands up against a guy like Ruffy, and you're never going to see him coming in, he's pretty explosive when he comes in. I think he's going to put the lights out, and I think Bobby's going to be. And I like Bobby Green too, brother. He's an awesome fighter. He's action, but normally for him to have good success, you've got to be about the same height as him, have the same reach, and willing to stand right in front of him. Ruffy is not going to do that. He's going to move in and out, going to circle, and he's going to come in. He's just going to blitz in when he's ready. This is my most confident pick
mm,
of the evening.
mm. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Between Ruffy and Leal, they're my two most confident picks on this card for sure. I just feel like this is pretty much just 1+1 = 2, and I see a lot of people talking shit on the internet about Ruffy and about his last performance and how when he fought against Long Top, that he's like, oh, he couldn't finish Long Top and he hit him with everything and he gassed out and all this. Everybody hits Long Top with everything and he doesn't fall down. That kid has a special talent to be able to take punches and not fall down and not get knocked out. Every other normal fighter gets knocked out by every single shot that he's able to take. It's just his special skill is to be, strong like bull and not fall down when he gets hit with shots, right? So I don't think that necessarily reflected poorly on Ruffy. I think if anything, it teaches him, hey, this is what 3 rounds feels like, because normally you're knocking people out in flashy style in the first round. So he's able to get a lot more, experience fighting 3 full rounds against a guy that's, a respectable opponent in Long Top. I'm right there with you with King Green as well. 38 years old, chinny up until this point. Likes to fight with his hands down, which I think is a bad combination for a guy like Ruffy. Won't go to the wrestling to mix things in. He'll happily stand there on the feet. And I think if you stand there on the feet with Ruffy, I know what you're going to say, Carlos. I know he's nothing like Conor McGregor. I know that you're going to go there, but there's little things that he does, little mannerisms that Ruffy does to me that reminds me a little bit of like a young up and coming Conor McGregor. And, that slick striking and the hands and the spinning kicks and things like that. Very, very exciting to watch. Really, really enjoy watching this guy fight. And over at Fighting Nerds, he's a guy that is over at arguably the best gym right now. And I think he's going to be a problem for Green. And the only way I see this fight going poorly for Ruffy is if he hits Bobby with everything but the kitchen sink, and Bobby's still able to kind of, roll with the punches, and Ruffy gets tired. Green's able to kind of pick up the fight later on, but I don't see that happening. I think Ruffy gets it done here. think he gets it done maybe with a head kick or something like that when Bobby's got his hands down, but I think Ruffy puts him out. I think this is a good stylistic matchup for him. And next up, we have the Brazilian taking on the Brazilian here, with Amanda Lemos taking on Yasmin Lucindo. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
Well, the thing that me about this hits, she can sting you. She's got a heavy hand. Like she can scramble on the ground. She can be controlled when she's down there, but she does she does stalk her opponent. Like she's always running them down when she's on the feet, and she applies a lot of pressure to her. With strikes. The only thing is that you know maybe this is a factor. I don't know because a lot of time in the women's divisions, it's like it's not the speed and the power that make you a great fighter. It's the skill. In the men's department, the speed and the power is also what amplifies that. So at 37, I was like, is she even hungry enough to want the titles? Does she think she's close? Like, I don't know. Is she happy just making a career of being in the UFC because she's a good fighter? The thing is this girl Lucindo is also going to try to pressure you, and she's not the best on her feet, but she makes it ugly enough to get the fight where she wants it to go on the ground. Now, I don't think she's probably as good on the ground as Janjarova, but Janjarova pretty much controlled Lemos on the ground
Yeah.
fairly easy, and Lucindo's just got to worry about the punches coming back. I've seen some fights where she's thrown like 5 punch combinations on girls and hasn't even dropped them. But Amanda's thrown one and dropped the girl. So I'd say Lucindo's got to worry about the punches coming back more than Lemos does. With that said, I think that her kind of bull rushing in and throwing strikes could get Lemos to overcommit to a strike and in that way get the takedown. I don't really see it happening any other way. If she presses her against the cage and clinches her and tries to run the pipe or get a waist lock, I don't see Lemos allowing that to happen. So I think she's going to have to get it in exchange. I feel the pressure she puts on, she'll be able to do it. And obviously, youth is a factor. She's learning every day. She's adding new techniques. So I don't necessarily know what she's going to look like. Just like a lot of the young fighters, you don't know what they're going to bring to the table to the next fight. So I took Lucindo in this one.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. This one was really, really tough for me. I feel like whoever I pick, the other woman's gonna have the performance that I'm gonna explain. So I feel like it doesn't really matter who I pick because the other one's gonna make me look stupid. I'm gonna pick Lucindo because I personally believe that if you kind of look at the ages and kind of like what Carlos said about being young and up and coming, and then you have 37 as far as Amanda Lemos is concerned. Does she still want this anymore at the age of 37? Um, the way that you beat Amanda Lemos a few fights ago is you wrestle her, you take her down, you hold her down, you beat her up on the ground, and that's exactly what Zhang Wei Li did. And ever since that fight, she's demonstrated that she's obviously been and worked on her wrestling. In the Mackenzie Dern fight, she showed that she's been working on her takedown defense, but. We're also talking about Mackenzie Dern, who can't actually wrestle and can't take people to the floor, even though she's decorated in jiu-jitsu. So how much better has she got at stuffing takedowns? Um, Lucindo, on the other hand, she's not necessarily somebody that's going to beat you up on the feet. When she fought against Marina Rodriguez in her last fight, I picked Marina Rodriguez as the underdog, and Lucinda got dropped by Marina in that fight, I think twice. Definitely once from when I watched it back, but if I'm remembering, she may have got dropped twice. And the thing that was able to save her in that fight was the fact that once she got a body lock and she was able to get a trip takedown, she would camp out on top for the rest of that round and win the round purely because of the fact she had so much more control. And Lucinda won a split decision, but my only concern in this fight is if she gets hit with that same shot from Amanda Lemos, does Lemos put her out? Because Lemos has more power than what Marina Rodriguez does. And I would say that Lemos is probably more of a finisher as well than Marina Rodriguez is as well. She has a few more submission wins on her record, and She's definitely a girl that is definitely more live for a finish in Lemos in this matchup. So definitely a tough one for me to pick. I'm going to go with Lucindo just because she's the younger girl. I think she can push Lemos up against the fence and mix in takedowns, even if it's just clinching and beating her up in the clinch. I think that'll help her out a little bit in terms of wearing on the power of Lemos. I think Lucindo's demonstrated that she can get people to the ground and control them on the ground. And obviously, Lemos has demonstrated that she can be held down. So I definitely think that's definitely a path to victory for Lucindo. But I am a little worried about this one just purely because I've seen Lucindo get tagged a few times. She overextends and leaves herself exposed. So you can get away with that against certain fighters at a certain level. But once you start getting up to the Amanda Lemoses who have a little bit more power, it kind of worries me a little bit. But I'm going to go with Lucindo in this one. I just want to take the younger fighter, but I wouldn't. If somebody felt like they felt good about Lemos as an underdog, I wouldn't stop them betting on her because I can see the path to victory for her as the veteran who's been around the block. But I'm just going to pick Lucindo just because the 14-year age gap is definitely something that kind of hits you in the face, especially in this matchup and the takedown. So. And next up, we have got Jalin Turner taking on Ignacio Bahamondes. And I'm going to pass this one over to you, Carlos. Two really tall guys in this division. Who do you have coming out on top?
All right. The way I look at this is it could be a back and forth war on the feet. Turner has some very busted. Um, doesn't mix it up a whole lot. Does throw some kicks, but and some knees, but he does have really good boxing. Nice long punches, straight. Um, I have seen him like submit guys, so if it goes to the ground, like you'd have to watch out for Turner as well. Um, the difference in this fight, because Bahamondes is very good on the ground, is very good standing as well. Uh, One of the differences is that he's very creative with his striking. Um, it kind of sometimes it'll come out of nowhere when you don't think it's when sometimes fighters have a rhythm and sometimes he just goes on a different path, and that's when he catches you with a strike that'll hurt you. And don't know if that makes any sense to you at all, but that's what I see sometimes is
Yeah,
like he might throw a spinning this or a flying something, you know what I mean? Like it's just you don't expect him to do it because he doesn't do it often,
yeah,
and the one thing that kind of made me take Bahamondes is the fact that uh, if this becomes a back and forth fight, uh, like let's say the Dan Hooker fight with Jalin Turner, um, Bahamondes is more of a dog in this fight than Jalin Turner is going to be. Uh, you know, he should have went for the finish against Moicano.
mm,
Would have been an easy night for him. Why all of a sudden did he just fall apart? Maybe mentally, he thought the fight was over, just couldn't recover from that, and then he got clipped with something. Who knows?
yeah,
But I just feel like Bahamondes is the type of guy, whether you think the fight's over or not, he's like, okay, is it over? Okay, we're good. Oh, it's back on? Let's go. And he's ready to go to war.
mm,
So that's basically what's making me take this. And you hear it from a lot of the guys in the locker rooms and stuff and interviews, like they're especially trained with Bahamondes too, is just how talented he is on the feet that we haven't seen yet. And
yeah,
maybe Jim Turner is going to bring it out of him, on Saturday. Bahamondes in general has got a lot of creative striking. He does have some karate style strikes. He does have Muay Thai and boxing. And, sometimes those short karate strikes, things that you don't see coming. And I think it's because he grew up in martial arts, a little kid doing karate. There's a lot of little techniques that he holds on to that work for him. And I just see him getting the victory in this one.
mm. Yeah, I agree with you about Bahamondes being the more gritty guy and the more dog in this fight. And when I watched the Turner fight where he fought against Dan Hooker, I didn't like his body language in that fight. When things didn't go his way, I didn't like what I saw. he had success early with Dan Hooker in that fight, but that's the thing I notice about Turner is he has success early in fights against guys as well who are much shorter than him in the division, and he has that height and reach and sort of wingspan against guys in the division, but he's not going to have that in this matchup against Bahamondes. And I think sometimes his physical gifts overwhelm guys who aren't used to being able to fight against a guy that has that kind of range and that kind of size. So he has success early, he puts them away, and that's kind of all she wrote. But once things don't go his way, the other guy can see that, and I think somebody like Bahamondes, being that they're going to be similar height, similar reach, I just think he's the much more skilled and well-rounded guy. If things don't go his way in round one, he can mix something up and change things. Bahamondes trains with Bilal Muhammad, who's the current champion, which I love because it's I think when you're training with the current champion, they said that they used Bahamondes to give Bilal looks for Leon Edwards. You're around a guy that is at the top of his game, who has the belt, who's somebody that is the best in their particular weight class. So I think that it's somebody who he can kind of rely upon to beat a guy like Jalin Turner. And that's not to say that Bahamondes is going to mix in wrestling, but Bahamondes has nice front chokes. He has nice anaconda chokes and Das chokes with the long range, the long arms that he has, which we've seen him get. We've seen him get spinning wheel kicks. The guy can box, like Carlos said as well, and I know that he can fight a full five rounds at a high pace. I know he's not fought 5 rounds, but his cardio seems to be immaculate. Whereas Turner, when he gets to round 3, he kind of seems to slow down. The accumulation of damage that he's taken, it's not something I really, really like. And I also think as well that in this particular fight, in this particular matchup, I just believe that Turner's kind of outclassed everywhere. I don't see where Turner is going to be able to kind of, impose himself. He can't walk down Bahamondes because of the fact that they're both the same sort of height and reach, and he can't use his grappling or wrestling because I think Bahamondes is obviously going to be training with a guy like Bilal Muhammad, who, who's going to be giving him looks with much better wrestling. So I think wherever this fight goes, I think Bahamondes is going to be ready for it, and I think that he's going to probably finish Turner as well later on, maybe round 2 or round 3. I think Turner will look great until he doesn't. Maybe in round 1 he has some success, but I think Bahamondes has shown that he can weather a storm, and he's, like Carlos said, he's got a little bit more dog in him. I like Bahamondes this week. I'm definitely going to be betting on him. And if you are all the way here now at the co-main event between these two, hit that like and subscribe button. You are definitely not a casual, and this is one that casuals and hardcore MMA fans are going to enjoy. We have Justin, the highlight reel Gaethje, taking on Rafael Fiziev. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first for the co-main event. Carlos, who do you have in this one?
So I've been hearing some things over this past week about Gaethje. They talked about how badly he looked after the knockout with Max Holloway, and then that he had as a type of knockout to change your career, can change your chin. You know what I mean? Like all, and I get that it was a bad knockout. They were tired. They were sweaty, to be honest with you, like that was a complete domination from Holloway. So Gaethje was playing catch up the entire fight. So he was dead tired, and he got caught with something, and he went down, face first. Um, this is gonna sound stupid because he's a guy that got knocked out, and Holloway's the guy that put him out. But Holloway doesn't have life changing power, and I understand that he got put out pretty badly. But sometimes when you're fatigued, you'll just collapse. Okay. Uh, with that said, also, I'll throw this in there. Gaethje doesn't cut a lot of weight to be at 55 either. He's one of the few guys that, one of the things that he loved in his career was he's like, I don't really like to cut a lot of weight. So I'm going to stay like, he probably hovers 15 pounds or 10 pounds over 55. He's not a very big person for the weight class. He's good size for the weight class, but he's not a very massive person for the weight class. With that said, I kind of feel like this fight's going to go almost the same way the first one did. It's a 3-round fight, okay? And Rafael Fiziev, his striking depends on how you react to his power. How do you react to the impact of it? And Gaethje doesn't react negatively to the impact. Unfortunately, he walks into the storm. What I do see is that he, even in that fight, the first one, he was very cautious about where his head was, taking clean shots, and he was countering and, putting it on Fiziev from round 2 to 3. I thought that Fiziev won the first round. Gaethje doesn't need you to be worried about the impact of his shot because he doesn't throw every shot hard, whereas Fiziev does. Gaethje just waits till there's an opening, and he's got probably the most. Everybody likes to call it basic, and you want to see spinning kicks and wheel kicks and back fist and his famous rolling thunder that never lands, but he basically throws a 1-1-2 down the middle all the time with some hooks, and that's the most basic you can get, and it lands. And he'll throw in some knees and some leg kicks. Should be the easiest thing to read, but he throws it right down the middle. And I feel that the fight's going to go exactly the same way. So I'm taking Justin Gaethje. I like Fiziev. I like what he can do. I like that he's athletic, he's fast, he's strong, he's powerful, but he relies on that. And by round 2, your speed fades. And by round 2, unfortunately, like he doesn't hit as hard as he did in the first round. So, and that's because he puts everything into it. And if you don't react the way that he wants you to react to those shots, he kind of has nothing else to go on.
September 2023. That is the last time that we saw Rafael Fiziev. He tore his ACL against Matus Gamrot in that fight. And we haven't seen him since. And obviously, but the performance that he had in the fight before that Gamrot fight was the loss to Justin Gaethje. And obviously now we have the rematch. And I got 4 words to say. Dog of the week. Justin Gaethje. 3 in a row right now. Justin Gaethje is going to make it 4. I think my dog of the week at the moment is 5-2 overall on this channel, and obviously having a lot of success picking underdogs to bet on. And I really like Justin this week, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, the damage," like Carlos said, with Max Holloway knockout and 36 years old, and the guy had 10 months off to recover from that knockout. I believe it was actually longer than 10 months, but he's had at least 10 months, so he's almost a full year to recover from that knockout. Okay. Rafael Fiziev has been out of fighting since 2023. So it's about 17 months he hasn't fought. And for somebody that knows an ACL injury, because I've had one myself, I know the problems that the ACL injury can give people as far as coming back. And so now he's taking this fight on like a week and a half's notice. So he's taking it short notice off of a 1.5 year layoff against a guy that has already beaten him before. Gaethje was training for a 5-round fight as well. Granted, it was against Dan Hooker. I think maybe Fiziev is probably, is better than Dan Hooker. But the fact of the matter is now that Justin's only going to have a 3-round fight to worry about instead of a 5. Justin was able to mix in the wrestling in the last fight just to get Fiziev to think about it. Like Carlos said earlier on a different breakdown, at least it gives somebody something to think about, even if you don't get the takedowns. Fiziev has good takedown defense, but Gaethje was able to steal the last round, I believe, with a takedown at the end of the fight. And I also think as well that Justin's going to want to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost, put some respect on my name after that knockout. He got embarrassed against Holloway, and I think he's going to want to show that, he's still that guy over at 155 that people should still be worried about, and that he still has skill in the division. The names that Justin Gaethje has lost to: Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Eddie Alvarez earlier on when he was sort of in his prime, or earlier on in his career. Um, they're his losses. And Max Holloway. They're his losses. They're probably arguably some of the best 155ers that we've seen in the last like 10 years. So my argument to you is Rafael Fiziev in that ballpark? No. Is Justin Gaethje, is his chin failing him? We'll see on Saturday. But one thing I will say is that with this matchup, I look at it and I say, well, Fiziev likes to throw power kicks, but Gaethje, if he sits in boxing range, he pushes forward and pressures Fiziev. When it comes to the boxing, Gaethje is the better boxer. In the first fight, they demonstrated that if he throws the jab, he has a nice uppercut. He can really touch Fiziev with his hands. He always has the low calf kick that he can fall back on, which I think would definitely be a good weapon, especially to kind of kick the knee of Fiziev, or at least attack the leg of Fiziev coming off that knee injury. And when I watched their first fight, I think it took the first round for Justin to be able to realize, the game plan of how to attack Fiziev. And I think this time he's going to be able to come in and say, hey, with Trevor Whitman in his corner, fight behind the jab, get into the boxing range, pressure this guy, don't let him throw his kicks, because to be honest with you, I don't really think that Fiziev's boxing is all that. I think he's more of a kick boxer. I think that the emphasis on the kick. And I think once you get inside his range where you have to make him box, I don't think that he's necessarily that technical. I think he kind of wings punches as opposed to actually, throwing jabs and technical strikes. And I think that's where Justin can excel. I like Justin this week. I think that he's definitely got the better cardio as well. Obviously, you could see some ring rust from Fiziev, and I think it's kind of crazy that he's the underdog just purely because he got knocked out by Max Holloway. I mean, at the end of the day, Max caught him on the end of a punch that I think knocks out most people. And like I said, he's had plenty of time to recover. So outside of, Justin's chin being washed, which I don't think it is, I think Gaethje's the better fighter, and I think he's got more ways to win. So give me Justin Gaethje to keep the streak alive for Dog of the Week.
The other thing I'd like to say, and this is just speculation about it,
Mm.
is yes, he had the ACL tear. Um, there's also this rumor, and I think you've probably heard it in the same like shows and circles and stuff.
Mm.
But a lot of fighters go out to Tiger Muay Thai to get these special supplements
Mm.
that are very difficult to detect.
Yeah.
Okay, whether that's the case, I go and he's got some super healing power for the ACL in a little bottle. Who knows? That's something that a lot of people have said about Tiger Muay Thai,
Mm.
you know, and I don't know if that's true or not. Okay, but what I do know is from the time that he's fought Gaethje to now, um, I think he's fought Dos Anjos,
Yeah, he
and
fought Dos Anjos before
he
Gaethje. Yeah.
Gaethje, yeah, he's fought exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't really see him changing anything. And what you say about kickboxing, I don't know why, but when guys are kickboxing, they don't set anything up. So much like the picture here, he sets up his strikes pretty well.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, he's making you read one thing so he can do another. He's making you check this so there's another opening. But Fiziev does none of that.
Mm.
Like I said, it's impact. If when he crashes into you, you react a certain way, he's going to get better. Like I don't really see the fight going any differently.
Yeah.
But is there going to be a lot of ring rust? Not from Fiziev because, like I said, he's going to fight the exact same way the whole time. Once his speed and his power is gone, as he gets older, he's going to get cut by the UFC unless he learns to fight a little smarter. So that was the one thing that I see in his fights. There's no setup, no nothing.
Mm.
And like you said, Gaethje is the better boxer. Those are just little things to point out is that Gaethje does set things up.
Mm.
And he does wait for the openings on the setup. But Fiziev, so he's an actual smarter fighter than Fiziev.
Mm. which a
I
lot of
just hope
people.
I just hope the chin holds up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only concern that I have, and to be honest with you, with the chin, that's the only thing I'm concerned about. But I will also say as well, I also believe that this is a short notice turnaround for Fiziev to get paid. The guy's not fought in 17 months, coming off a surgery. I also look at it and think like, he's probably looking at it thinking, well, the fight makes sense. I lost to him. Let's try and get this one back. He's high up in the division. Why not take the opportunity? But if he loses, he's getting a big payday as a co-main event on a pay-per-view. This is probably arguably one of the bigger fights that he's had because when he fought Dos Santos, it was in the UFC Apex. That was probably his other biggest fight. He's not really fought, when he fought Gamrot, the injury happened, that sucks. When he fought Gaethje, he lost, that sucks. But in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, quick turnaround after a 17-month layoff to a big pay-per-view and a big payday. Win or lose, he's kind of winning, if you know what I mean. So that's
Yeah.
also another thing that I'm kind of thinking of too is, Gaethje was kind of thinking, hey, I've got a 5-round main event against a Savage, whereas Fiziev's like, win or lose, I can dog it out with this guy on the feet, and even if I lose, I'm still getting a payday, So that's also
Yeah.
one of the things I think could play a factor in that matchup for sure. And that brings us all the way to the main event, guys. Alex Pereira taking on Magomed Ankalaev. And I'll be honest with you, I am a little nervous for Alex in this one. I'm going to pass this one over to Carlos to break this one down, give me his thoughts, feelings on this one. I've done a lot of talking as far as the dog of the week, so let me know who you got in this one, Carlos.
All right, this one is still like I gotta make a last second pick on this, and the reason being is because, you know, against Blachowicz, I didn't think he was gonna win. You know, I did think so against Jamal Hill. I didn't think he was gonna win against Prohaska because I'm waiting for them to take him down. You know what I mean? Like those two guys, they have the ability to take him down. Prohaska took him down in the first fight. It was fairly easy, but for some reason in the second fight, couldn't do it. You know, um, I was surprised. Blachowicz had a lot of control over Pereira, but he's able to get back up. Eventually, he stalls out and then just gets back to his feet somehow. Ankalaev has the wrestling that everyone's talking about. Could be the factor that neutralizes Alex Pereira. Okay, Conor McGregor had the exact same thing when everybody says, "Hey, can't wait till he fights." What was the name of that little midget guy that he fought there? Anyway, he fought this dude. He was a wrestler, and it was a short notice fight. Money Mendez. It was a short notice fight. He beats Mendez. So everybody said, "Oh, it was short notice." Blah blah blah. So then the next big wrestler, dominant wrestler that he fought was Khabib. So I'm like, well, okay, Khabib takes everybody down. Khabib's gonna beat you. I had no worry about that. But everyone watches Connor because he has the intangible. Like he has the it factor, and they're like, he's gonna squeak it out. Connor doesn't have the big power at 55, and he doesn't have the size advantage that he had at 45. Alex Pereira has power at 205, and he has the size advantage at 205, coming up from 85. It's just a big person. I don't know how strong he is because when you see the other grapplers take him down, when they get back to their feet, they are breathing very heavy. So it must be hard to keep Pereira down. It must be hard to control him, control a limb, anything, because when he grabs their wrist, it takes him a while to get away from him. Is Ankalaev going to have that same issue? I don't know. I'm assuming no. I think that his wrestling is solid enough to probably take Alex down whenever he'd like to. It doesn't mean Alex can't get up whenever he likes to as well, because he has shown that in the past. And Glover Teixeira has been, the shining light that has been teaching him how to survive on the ground, how to get back up, how to, stuff takedowns. Everything in my mind is telling me to pick Ankalaev, but Pereira's just got that, as he calls it, shaman. and he's finding a way to squeak these wins. And I love Pereira, you know what I mean? And I like Ankalaev. I said I won't do it, but the passion pick, I'm going with Alex Pereira, and I think he can get it done. Now, I could be cursing this, much as every other Alex Pereira fan is like, I think I'm cursing this right now. Um, Ankalaev deserves it. I thought he got robbed against Jan Blachowicz. I thought he should be champion at that point. Um, and the Ramadan factor that you were telling me about as well, like he's taking this during Ramadan and he's depleting himself of probably the vital nutrients to recover. These things aren't adding up, and it's looking more in Pereira's favor. But in Dagestan, they do build them tough. So I'm like, I don't want to talk myself out of it. I'm going Alex Pereira. That's who I got.
Yeah, you can see the steam coming out of Carlos's ears for this one, and I gotta be honest with you. I mean, before I break this one down, hit the like and subscribe button. I gotta admit, you could really make a good case for both of these guys. The Ramadan factor has me a little bit spooked to pick Ankalaev. I think that he's somebody who I'm not going to say he has gas tank issues, but I think that he definitely looks visibly tired in fights and definitely slows down a little bit, somewhat in fights. I'm not going to say that the guy's a quitter either because, up until this point, he's dominated pretty much every fight that he's had. But some of his fights, like the Rakic fight, he kind of, it wasn't that impressive. And I feel like Alex knocks out Rakic. In some of the other fights that Ankalaev's had, like when he got triangle choked by, Paul Craig, he wasn't able to hang on in those last few moments in that fight and hold out for a very dominant victory. He ended up tapping, right? And the Ramadan factor as well has me spooked just purely because of the fact that if he is trying to look to wrestle in this fight, I think that that could play a factor on his gas tank. Now, Ankalaev obviously can also resort to striking, but the difference to me is that Ankalaev is a good striker, but he's not a great striker. Now, to me, Alex Pereira is a great striker. So when you mix it up on the feet, we've seen Ankalaev be weak to the calf kick in the Jan Blachowicz fight, where Jan was able to really chew up his calf. And we've heard all these stories from DC and Joe Rogan on the commentary team about how he has a special calf kick and it's got no tail and all this type of stuff. So I question what this fight looks like after round 3 with Ankalaev's cardio due to Ramadan and also what his calf looks like. So that has me a little spooked to pick Ankalaev. Now, to play devil's advocate, you've got Alex Pereira, 37 years old, older guy, has done a lot of things within the sport. The guy is now in the Hall of Fame. He got Fighter of the Year. He's been doing a lot of traveling, a lot of media obligations, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, at what point is the apple going to fall from the tree, and we're going to kind of see Alex fall off. And we've seen him get knocked out in the past by great strikers. And Ankalaev, I would say, is a decent striker. He's not on Izzy's level. He's not necessarily all that, but he can strike. So there's always that possibility that Pereira gets caught. Ankalaev's talking about, I refuse to wrestle. I'm going to knock this guy out. It's going to be, strictly striking. But I don't believe what fighters say. I believe what they do. And we've seen Ankalaev wrestle in the past. So you have to think the wrestling is going to be something he's going to look at. The thing that I can't get over with Alex Pereira is the fact that I think with him, he has demonstrated an ability to just kind of get it done in the moments where the UFC has got their glory, their guy at this moment in the UFC. And I think that the fact that they've decided to do this fight during Ramadan and they've told Ankalaev, hey, you're going to either take this or, it's kind of like we're going to move on kind of thing. And he's openly admitted, Ankalaev, that he's refused fights during Ramadan before. And this is now his toughest test in Pereira. And even if Ankalaev gets Alex down, he does a really good job of neutralizing the position and holding guys up close so they can't get a whole lot of damage off. And like Carlos said, that the guys they get up after the end of the round, and they're breathing pretty heavy. And I question all of those things as far as Ankalaev when the reasons I just pointed out. Even if he does get Alex down, what does he look like after he gets back up at the end of the round and Alex has taken no damage and controlled posture the whole time? So I say all of that to say that I think Sharma, I think Pereira gets it done. I think he gets it done in a later round after Ankalaev maybe slows down a little bit. I'm going to go with Pereira here, and I think he keeps the belt, and I think that we see Alex maybe move on to a bigger thing, whether that's John Jones, whether that's Tom Aspinall, whatever that looks like, moving up to heavyweight, whatever. I think we see more from Pereira, and I think that the UFC Golden Boy continues to get it done. So yeah, I'm going with Alex Pereira. Definitely don't hate an Ankalaev bet. I will say that, but I do think Ankalaev definitely has a path to victory in this one with the wrestling. But I just can't see anything but that left hook landing for Pereira and those calf kicks. So yeah, do you have anything else that you want to add to this one, Carlos?
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to throw in there is that that shin to shin that Rogan loves talking about
Hmm.
with Ankalaev and Blachowicz. Okay, um, I have some. Well, bone bruising in your shin is very weird because right now I can rub down my shin. It's actually my right shin, and I could feel that little nugget sticking out from when I checked the kick pretty hard a few times. You know what I mean? So I definitely got a contusion on the bone. And over time, you're young, you're angry enough, you just don't feel it anymore. Um, right now, as I get older, I'm like, you know what? That bruise is still there, like the lump is still there, and I'm just like, what does Ankalaev? How does his leg feel? Because you don't get over bone bruises like that.
Hmm.
Checking with your shin is one thing, but he was eating shots shin to shin. And how many of those Pereira shots is it going to take before he starts limping around the ring?
Hmm.
Because it didn't take very many and it wasn't shin to shin. It was a calf kick, but Yuri didn't last very long before he started. I think it was the second one
Yeah.
had him hobbling, and I just think like whether Alex switches a stance and goes shin to shin or just stays right on that calf. I'm like, I don't think it's going to take long. And then how effective is this wrestling going to be? Because shin to shin, you can still use the calf muscle. But when Alex is thrown to that calf, you're not going to be able to get full extension. It's going to cramp up and your leg's going to start to collapse a little bit when you're ready to put the power on it. So if he goes to work early on that shin, I just don't know. He's not going to need that many shots before he damages him,
Hmm.
and I just feel like that can happen real quick in the first round.
Yeah.
And I'm loving the ride. I'm following Shama all the way.
Hmm.
This guy has been nothing but entertaining, taking fights on short notice. People coming up with excuses. That guy's a striker. This guy's a striker. That's why they're giving him. A lot of those guys were grapplers too. They got hurt early. So could that happen to Ankalaev? I can see that happening. What I can also see happening is Alex holds his hands out, not low, but just out, and he doesn't hold them high. But I can also see Ankalaev stepping in and catching him with something. But at 205, does Alex take a punch better? He hasn't really been clipped at 205.
Yeah.
So how good does he take it? These are all the answers, like all the questions that need some answering, and this is the fight that's going to get it. But damn, the guy's entertaining. Most of the time I have no idea what this guy's saying because it's
Hmm.
Portuguese, but you just love the like, oh, Alex Pereira interview. I'm going to listen to it, and you're listening to his manager talk. The guy is just so entertaining. So I'm not taking it for any other reason than he finds a way to come out on top. Let's go, Alex Pereira.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I share the same sentiments that you do, and I think that the calf kick as well. I think it's something that could also put off the wrestling of Ankalaev. If it limits his movement, it's going to be difficult for him to plant to get into the clinch as well. So, I definitely share the same sentiments that you do when it comes to Alex's skill set and what Ankalaev's going to look like, not just from cardio but also from past fights. You know, where he's been damaged with to the calf. So I'm looking forward to this one, man. I mean, I honestly hope Alex gets it done just purely from an entertainment standpoint, too. I don't really want Ankalaev to have the belt because he's one of those guys where, you know, he doesn't fight very often. Some of his fights are a little bit boring as well. So hopefully stone-faced Alex Pereira can get it done and we can be happy and Sharma can live on. But if you've made it all the way through our podcast today, hit that like and subscribe button. We're here every week breaking down fights. Come hang out with us. Check it out. Leave a comment as well. Who you think you've got in the main event? Let me know as well what you guys think about the Apex. I want to see what you guys think. And we will see you next week, guys. Take it easy. Thank you for listening.
Peace.